Just like Schrodinger's cat, you never know what will appear behind the door. It's a false lie. Or a cruel reality. However, when you think you can end everything with death, unspeakable terror power will pull you back to a more cruel reality, with terrifying diseases and unknown creatures. The only disease in the world is poverty. His name is Gu Jun. This is what he said as an opening remark when he stood at the College of Medicine opening ceremony with the first place achievement. When he was only 10 years old, he received the terrible news that his parents had disappeared while conducting scientific research abroad. He lived in an orphanage until he was 18 years old. He received $5 million in compensation from his parents' company and successfully entered the University of Tokyo College of Medicine as he had wished. This large sum of money made him forget his dream of becoming a doctor, and he began a life of debauchery. Until half a year ago, he received the second piece of bad news in his life. He was diagnosed with an incurable malignant tumor in the brainstem. Even if he undergoes surgery, he can only live for 9 months. Gu Jun, who was in decline for 2 years, eventually accepted the fact that even with all his wealth, he couldn't cure himself. He then made 2 decisions. First, he anonymously donated most of his money to an orphanage, and second, he set sail for the volcanic belt in the Indian Ocean. That was the place where his parents worked and disappeared. In order to find out the truth about his parents' deaths, Gu Jun spent a large sum of money to book a deep-sea diving project. Just as he walked out the door, he encountered a waiter with a distressed expression. Turns out these few very distinctive people also want to participate in the deep-sea diving. But the submarine has been booked by Gu Jun, which put the captain in a difficult position. When a person is about to die, their words are generally sincere. Gu Jun saw that there were so many seats available, so he agreed to let them travel together. However, the expression on the strongman behind them, what exactly does it mean? The diving bell began to submerge, enveloped by the sea water turning from blue to black. Through their conversation, Gu Jun knew that they were here for an adventure. There is no signal underwater, so live broadcasting is not possible. Leroy simply unbuckled his seatbelt in order to capture clearer footage to edit later. The captain weakly warned him that there were underwater currents, and this action was very dangerous. Gu Jun, ignoring everything around him, silently looked out the window. Suddenly, he noticed a half-person-high pointed peak protruding from the seabed. It seemed to be carved with various texts and patterns on the surface. How could something so neatly shaped exist at a depth of 1,500 meters underwater? The more he looked, the more he felt mysterious. The object was emitting a red light, and suddenly, Peng spewed out magma everywhere. Gu Jun abruptly covered his head tightly, in pain as if it were about to explode. When he opened his eyes again, he was instantly covered in cold sweat. Countless indescribable scenes flooded into the depths of his mind. The strange, terrifying, and insane. He felt his eyes bleeding, a blood-red vision. He saw a huge figure rising from a sea of blood. And at this moment, the diving bell suddenly began to violently shake. Fortunately, everyone was securely fastened in their seats. Gu Jun heard Lira's screams and the exclamations of the other people. Ding ding. Binding with the host. Binding successful. Detecting host condition. Gu Jun looked in surprise at the sharp steel in front of him. This is very similar to the stone steel I saw just now. The content on it seems to be some kind of system interface. At this moment, the system emitted a sound. Fatal anomaly in brainstem. Host will die suddenly 60 days later. Gu Jun lowered his head in helplessness, realizing that his life was soon coming to an end. The system prompted to trigger the task list. The higher the task level, the greater the reward. It could be divided into 3 levels: normal, difficult, and abyss. Only one task could be selected to complete each time, and only one task could be owned for each level. Until the host completes the task or exceeds the deadline, the task list refreshes at midnight every day. The normal task is to successfully rescue 1 emergency patient today, and the reward is a box of targeted cancer drugs, extending life by 5 days. The difficult task is to dissect 3 normal human bodies within 3 days, and the reward is a Kaplan brand dissecting knife. The Abyss task is to dissect 1 ghoul within a week, and the reward is unknown. Gu-jun understands that as long as he continues to complete tasks, he may have a chance to survive. What gives him a headache is where to find a ghoul to dissect. Suddenly, the system prompts to receive a beginner's gift package, with only 1 chance. After a dazzling light, an octopus with eyes all over its body appears. He needs to touch this mechanism to obtain the reward. Gu-jun suppressed his nausea, and trembling hand touched it. The octopus's tentacles exploded like flowers, wrapping around Gu-jun's hand and bit down. In an instant, Gu-jun felt a burst of excruciating pain in his hands. Converge back together again. The intense pain made Gu-jun pass out, and when he woke up, he found that his hands had a comforting feeling of rebirth. Ding! The host obtained calm hand as a doctor. What kind of treatment or surgery is being performed? A pair of calm hands, like an old doctor's, can be very helpful. What Gu-jun cares about is why he triggered the system. Is this related to his parents' research? However, the system does not have a conversation function. It simply repeatedly prompts him whether he accepts the task. Gu-jun decided to seek the truth behind all this. He looked at the task list again, and couldn't help but complain when he saw the Abyss task. Where can he find ghoul for this task? It's like a splitting headache all over again. The pain woke Gu-jun up from consciousness for a moment. The violent jolt made Lilira's elbow heavily hit against the back of the chair. Another jolt sent Lilira flying backwards. Gu-jun instinctively reached out his hand. He could clearly feel the effect of the calm hand energy, and he quickly and accurately grabbed the target. Lilira was firmly held in the arms of Gu-jun. Lin Little Begonia widened her eyes to let everyone see the strange scene outside the window, where various types of sea fish were densely packed, fleeing in panic but with nowhere to escape. The muscular man Wudong, at this moment, said fearfully, "The news is true. I shouldn't have come here." The suddenly formed dark whirlpool caused confusion for the diving device, and the old captain secretly wiped the sweat off his brow. Finally avoiding the dark current, they began to ascend. Lilira, who was rescued by Gu-jun, was saying words of gratitude. The next second, however, he was weakly squatting on the ground. He covered his left hand, from which the blood was still flowing. And Gu-jun could basically confirm that the system was real. Calm hand is also real. Returning will take some time. Lilira's injuries are unknown and emergency aid is needed. Gu-jun asked some questions, and Lilira could answer all of them. His consciousness is relatively clear, and he does not have any other discomfort. The old captain, in a panic, said to wait until we reached the sea surface before letting the doctor come to diagnose and treat him. Gu-jun suddenly blurted out that he is a medical student from the University of Tokyo Clinical Medicine. He instructed the captain to bring the medicine box for emergency treatment first. Gu-jun proceeded to conduct a thorough physical examination on Lilira. He found that apart from his arms, his body was unharmed. Isn't this just a normal mission to rescue an emergency patient? Gu-jun opened the task list in his mind and chose to accept the mission. At this moment, the captain brought over the emergency medical kit. Lilira appeared dizzy, but Gu-jun told him not to sleep and to focus on saying some words. Lilira obediently followed the instructions and said that he was a host on a supernatural channel. His favorite foods are jianbing, poached chicken, roast flour duck, sweet and sour pork, and twice-cooked pork. Gu-jun saw a 10-centimeter skin laceration on him, and blood was dripping. It was an open forearm fracture. He needs fixation and hemostasis. He instructed Lilira to endure the pain and not move around randomly. Gu-jun took the first aid kit and opened it. He used a buckle-style tourniquet to apply pressure and stop the bleeding on the upper right arm. Then he wrapped a layer of sterile gauze around it, because the calm hand effect made Gu Jun's hand steady without any tremors. Then he divided the medicine box lid into 2 halves to serve as small splints. He fixed and bandaged Li Lira's wound. He performed all actions in one swift motion. The crowd was astonished by the fast speed. Li Leroy immediately looked around asking for his phone when he regained consciousness, because he seemed to have captured something on camera. Gu Jun found his phone with a broken screen under his feet. Li Leroy looked at the phone that couldn't turn on in disbelief. "I almost lost my life just for the sake of shooting." Gu Jun anxiously asked him what he saw. Li Leroy, however, said that he was thrown out before he could see anything. Not long after, the few people finally surfaced and then went their separate ways. Suddenly, a voice from the system rang in the mind. "Normal task completed. Calm hand proficiency increased." A box of targeted medicine appeared in Gu Jun's coat pocket. At night, Gu Jun lay on the bed, continuously studying the medicine box in his hand with strange characters and biological symbols on it. He searched the entire internet, but couldn't find any information about it. Does such creatures with mysterious powers really exist in the real world? A system that possesses mysterious powers, just like a demon holding what you desire the most to tempt you. Gu Jun is researching tumor-targeting drugs as rewards for tasks. The text above is printed with strange alien characters and patterns. Unknowingly, the task refreshed at midnight. The new normal task is to practice puncturing a rubber tube with a scalp needle to apply a tourniquet 1,000 times. The reward for completing the task is a box of tumor-targeting drugs that can extend life by 5 days. For now, let's not worry about the difficult and abyss tasks. He picked up the phone and called the ship's medical office, asking them to deliver these items. He repeatedly inserted the scalp needle at a 30 to 40 degree angle, securing it with a tourniquet. After 2 hours, he achieved 1,000 insertions. He had punctured a pile of tourniquets in the process. System prompt: normal task completed. Proficiency of calm hand increased by 500. Another box of reward medicine appears, just as he was about to pluck one out to eat directly. As a medical dog, he thought it was too risky to experiment on himself directly, so he took out his phone and called his classmate and roommate, Kai Zixuan, to ask for help. 3 days later, Gu Jun returned to the entrance of the University of Tokyo College of Medicine. Kai Zixuan finally saw Gu Jun, who had taken a 3-month break from school. And what Gu Jun had prepared for him made him very nervous. He hurriedly asked Gu Jun if she was thinking of committing suicide. Gu Jun then told old Kai that she knew a divine doctor who had given her a special medicine that needed to be tested. Old Kai pointed at the malignant brainstem tumor cells that Gu Jun requested and said that he had already helped cultivate them into a suspension. Old Kai said that he was able to obtain these cells so quickly from the school cell room because he is participating in the Vanguard Cup. Gu Jun heard that the topic of the Vanguard Cup is related to malignant tumors. He asked old Kai to take him to have a look. In the laboratory, this mouse implanted with a certain tumor has developed ascites, forming a frog-like abdomen. He needs to aspirate the ascites to extract tumor cells for culture. Suddenly, Gu Jun's head started to ache. Everything in front of him became hazy and flickering, the pain in his head becoming more intense. The scene in front of him became clearer, but where the hell am I? He saw some indescribable instruments. 2 lines of blood words were painted on the wall, along with mysterious characters similar to those on a medicine box. In a daze, Gu Jun seemed to be able to understand the meaning of the blood words. He murmured softly. A horror rose from the depths of his heart. The blood words on the wall began to flow slightly. Each blood word turned into densely packed tiny worms. The disgusting sight made Gu Jun couldn't help but retch. He saw a corpse on the ground that he couldn't identify as a creature began to crawl towards him. Suddenly, it let out a roar, opening a mouth full of sharp teeth, leaving Gu Jun shocked and pale. He could only instinctively resist with his hands. Suddenly, Gu Jun's consciousness was pulled back by the tense shouting. All the illusions disappeared in an instant. He remembered the laboratory just now. Could it all have been an illusion? Suddenly a voice came through. It's the utterly disappointed teacher Gu Jun. He issued an expulsion order for Gu Jun. He said loudly to his classmates that Gu Jun used to be very talented, but he ruined himself. Being a medical student doesn't require you to be very smart, but it's about how hardworking you are. Gu Jun sits in front of the lab bench. He injects tumor cells separately into the bodies of mice. He also puts them into breeding cages. Next, they wait for these mice to grow tumors. Gu Jun opens the breeding cages a week later, only to see that the mice's abdomens have successfully developed tumors. Next, they will see if the experimental drug works or not. During this period, Gu Jun has only completed 3 normal missions. Now he has 5 plates of experimental drugs in hand. Gu Jun took out a pill and dosed it according to the weight of the mouse. 1 pill, when diluted, is enough to supply the dosage for 3 mice for 1 week. Gu Jun fixed the mouse with his left hand. He held a syringe in his right hand and began to administer the medicine to it. He divided the tumor-bearing mice into 2 groups for observation and comparison. Group A had 3 mice with abdominal tumors being administered with the experimental drug, while Group B had 2 mice with abdominal tumors that did not receive any medication. On the 7th day of the experiment, the mice in Group A showed no abnormalities, while the tumors in Group B were growing larger and starting to affect their mobility. He thus proved that the experimental drug was effective. He himself has to pick a suitable place to take the medication. So Gu Jun wrote a farewell letter. Then he arrived at the emergency department of a certain hospital. He took a deep breath and swallowed the pills. Gu Jun, who returned from the emergency room, is eating pig liver noodles made by his roommate Kai Zixuan. The taste of this pig liver made him suspect that the pig might have cirrhosis. Kai Zixuan said it was the leftover pig liver from the dissection class next door. He thought it was a waste to throw it away, so he took it back. This made Gu Jun instantly lose his appetite. Kai Zixuan also helped Gu Jun retrieve an overseas mail. This reminded Gu Jun of Li Leroy and the others. Upon opening it, it turned out to be Li Leroy's broken phone, which both surprised and disappointed him as it still wouldn't turn on, indicating it had not been repaired yet. Gu Jun decided that he could not let others see the contents in the phone and resolved to repair it himself. So he went to the hardware store and bought the necessary tools. He searched online for common problems and repair methods for the phone. Suddenly he had a sixth sense that someone was staring at him. Gu Jun quickly looked over. The man made eye contact with him and then turned around and walked away. Gu Jun frowned, wondering if it was just his own illusion. The repaired phone successfully started up. Gu Jun quickly clicked into the album and found the video of the diving accident. He put on headphones and watched it intently without missing a second. A few minutes later, the screen started shaking violently. Gu Jun knew that the diving accident had begun. The video continued to roll as the seawater quickly spun into a violent whirlpool. Gu Jun suddenly widened his eyes. How is this possible? He continued watching the video until he saw the part where he entered the system. In the video, it seems like his mouth was muttering something. Gu Jun increased the volume and listened carefully. From the abyss of time, so vast, dark fruits of terror grow at last. Worms of death begin to creep. In shadows deep where horrors sleep. With earth and sky, they'll stretch and rise. Endless, beneath the haunted skies. A harvest born from ancient doom. To curse the world with endless gloom. Gu Jun was so scared that he suddenly pulled off his earphones. This is the meaning of the alien characters on the wall in the laboratory illusion. Illusion, blood words, system, all of this is related. Gu Jun actually knows nothing about what his deceased parents did. The Lisheng technology company where they worked also closed down after Seabird disappeared. Gu Jun had also spent money to investigate the company but ended up with no results. Gu Jun speculated that the research conducted by Lisheng Technology must be related to that mysterious force. It couldn't have simply closed down so easily. Suddenly, Gu Jun's peripheral vision caught sight of the person from the hardware store in the daytime, confirming that this person must be monitoring him. Is he here to find Li Liru's phone? Lisheng Company found out about it because you went to investigate the volcanic belt. Gu Jun must find out the reasons for all this. The next morning, Gu Jun and Kai Zixuan arrived at the laboratory early. Teacher Gu announced that the country is going to hold a medical skills competition to select a group of new medical talents. The country is in urgent need of medical talents. Gu Jun vaguely feels that there is something unknown to the public that has already happened. This may be related to everything happening around oneself. Gu Jun feels that this is a close opportunity. So he volunteered himself. He expressed his intention to participate in the competition. Teacher Gu saw that he had turned over a new leaf and decided to give him a chance. He will only bring him along after he passes the test. Teacher Gu told the students clearly that this competition is crucial. Everyone must compete and dissect, so everyone needs to make full use of time to practice. Gu Jun looked at his calm hand. He only needed 500 more proficiency points to level up. He must upgrade quickly in order to go further in the competition. He has always been doing normal tasks before, but the difficult and abyss tasks are too absurd. Although he has the opportunity to undergo dissection training now, the deformed corpse mentioned is not so easy to come across. At this time, Teacher Gu asked them to go to the body storage building to request a body donor. Gu Jun was very pleased because this way, he would have the opportunity to select a body with deformities. The 4 people in front of the body storage building were all surprised. Combat boots, cryogenic transportation, protective suit. They saw a body transporter for the first time. They were discussing trying to select bodies with deformities as much as possible. Because although complete is good, but it is the deformities that are the most precious. It depends on luck if you can encounter them. At this time, the corpse carriers returned in an orderly manner. The disciplined formation made Gu Jun feel more and more like they were soldiers. Gu Jun was surprised to see the person walking at the end. Only the eyes above the mask were visible, looking at oneself with a cold gaze. He didn't have time to think too much. He needed to hurry to find the body donor. After several people submitted the application for the body claim form, 4 people arrived at the storage room. There are 50 storage slots inside, with the first row being the ones just delivered. After opening one storage slot, they saw that the elbow of this body donor was extremely twisted, as if it had been forcibly broken and then reconnected. Su Hai exclaimed that they were very lucky, as the first one they opened was deformed. This should be congenital. Gu Jun looked ahead. The feeling of something wrong in his heart grew stronger. He called Kai Zixuan for help, and together they opened the storage compartment next to them. After Gu Jun saw it clearly, he was suddenly shocked. Another deformed corpse? This is too bizarre. The other 2 were stunned when they saw it. What a coincidence. Gu Jun and Kai Zixuan opened another storage compartment apart. And it's a child. Su Hai was astonished and thought, could it be that all these people have been exposed to nuclear radiation? Gu Jun's face changed drastically. He decided to continue driving. This is a deformity of the left forearm. This is a deformity of the left knee. They found that all the bodies that were just brought in were all deformed. The bodies are all intact. All 4 limbs are abnormal. At this moment, his head suddenly started to hurt again, and Gu Jun remembered. This is exactly the same as the rotten corpses he saw in the hallucination in the laboratory. His head is getting more and more painful. That familiar feeling is coming back. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dark and dimly lit room. Before him was a large tank filled with formalin solution, into which iron stakes connected by iron chains were dropping one by one. each chain bound a corpse. Are all of these human beings? Suddenly, the water surface rippled slightly, and a hand stretched out. The hand was also deformed and twisted. Gu Jun. This sound from Kai Zixuan woke Gu Jun up. The teammates looked at him with worry and tension. At this moment, the administrator Old Chui suddenly opened the door and angrily asked them why they were shouting. The scene before him made him even more furious. He questioned them about the meaning of opening all the lids. Are you looking for a wife here? Su Hai asked him what the situation was with all these body donors having physical deformities, but Old Chui clearly had never seen it before. He pretended to be calm, thinking that it must be because the higher-ups needed these rare resources for them to practice. After apologizing, they quickly put the lid back on. The disappearance of his parents, a mysterious system, terrifying illusions, and a sudden medical competition unfolded, making Gu Jun feel that everything was connected. Teacher Gu, after hearing the cause and effect, also believed that this competition was unusual. But with such scarce resources for practice, one can definitely stand out. Everyone must seize the opportunity. As for this body, Teacher Gu also has no clue whether this deformity is congenital or acquired. We can only dissect it first to have a look. He encouraged everyone to share their thoughts freely. Let's start by dissecting the back of the wrist and hand of the deformed left upper limb. After a moment of silence, we will begin the dissection of the deformed hand. Zhang Haoran used dissecting forceps to draw a transverse incision line on the back of the hand. This hand is severely twisted. He drew the line based on feeling. Then he nodded to Wang Ruoxiang, leaving the rest to her. Wang Ruoxiang took out a shiny dissecting knife. She focused all her attention on stabbing the skin along the incision line. Something's wrong. Wang Ruoxiang couldn't feel the fascia. Logically, after piercing the skin, the resistance of the blade should decrease. Teacher Gu told her to continue cutting with a normal depth. Wang Ruoxiang nodded and continued handling the scalpel. Suddenly, a black liquid spurted out from the incision. Wang Ruoxiang's retreating body was caught by Gu Jun. Teacher Gu speculated that the area might be a subcutaneous cyst. There is fluid accumulation beneath the skin, and the skin is more mobile. Teacher Gu instructed them to be careful while cutting. Since it's a national-provided resource, Gu Jun doesn't think there should be any danger. Wang Ruoxiang and Su Haoran continued to collaborate. In no time, the two of them completed peeling the skin off their hands. After that, Teacher Gu called for Gu Jun. Gu Jun entered the system interface and accepted the difficult task of dissecting a deformed corpse. The task countdown began, lasting for 3 days. Gu Jun took the dissecting shears and performed the operation steadily. He seems to have understood. It's not that the superficial fascia is missing, but rather that the hand's deformity has twisted together. Teacher Gu approached to take a closer look and indicated it was possible. He asked Gu Jun to continue to prove that what he said was correct. Gu Jun acknowledged and then suddenly used the calm hand technique. He remained very calm and skillfully organized and separated the blood vessels. Classmates all watched in astonishment. Teacher Gu also looked at him in amazement, facing this abnormality and noticing the structure with keen attention. Gu Jun said that there is also a lot of fluid accumulation in the fascia. He thought it was impossible that it was caused by a subcutaneous cyst. Veins and fascia with congenital malformations will definitely grow along with the malformed structures. This body clearly isn't. So this must be some kind of acquired deformity caused by a reason. Teacher Gu laughed heartily upon hearing this, and immediately announced that Gu Jun was allowed to compete. Teacher Gu encouraged Gu Jun to make persistent efforts and not waste his talent again. Then Teacher Gu announced that everyone should take a break first. The sentence was interrupted by Gu Jun before it was finished. He requested to continue dissecting. He planned to sleep here for the next few days. He wants to practice diligently and make good use of time. Later, he noticed that the progress of the 3-hour knife-holding task only increased by 4%. Additionally, the completion degree increased more for dissecting the deformed hand, while it increased less for the normal parts, watching the completion percentage rise bit by bit. Finally, in his non-stop efforts day and night, the task was completed. Calm Hand has been upgraded to level 2. He received a reward of an incomplete blueprint. Gu-jun returned to the dormitory to collect the task reward, and the splitting headache struck again. He couldn't help but complain that the system doesn't have a gentler way of giving hints. When he opened his eyes again, in front of him was the mysterious space he had just entered when triggering the system. After a burst of light, a holographic image of a chart appeared, like a front view of a chest, manipulable in size with both hands. This should be the chest structure of some primate. But what kind of animal would have such armor like bone plates? And there are these strange characters. Gu-jun! Looking at the diagram, he could only guess a few words. The long paragraph underneath should be the key to the chart. And why repeat a sentence 4 times? From the messy, trembling handwriting, one could sense the writer's amazement, confusion, and panic at the time of taking notes. There is a huge, bald tree. Gu-jun discovered that there was a child on top. He was using his hands and feet to climb up along the trunk when Gu-jun lifted his foot and accidentally kicked an arm. Looking around, under the big tree lay numerous deformed bodies scattered in all directions. The child's body fell down from the big tree, causing Gu-jun to reach out in horror to catch Pum with a cry. The child's body fell heavily to the ground. Gu-jun looked down in disbelief, staring at the child whose eyes were wide open, devoid of any vitality. He has seen this child before. The child in the morgue with deformed hands. With a shout, Gu-jun woke up. It turned out to be a nightmare. Gu-jun remembered seeing the tree from his dream in an advertisement. So he took out his phone and searched on Bugle. This big banyan tree looks very similar, but Gu-jun isn't sure if it is the same one. He clicked on the related suggestions below the news. The image above made his heart suddenly tighten. The middle-aged man being interviewed above looks very familiar. Isn't this the body donor who was dissected by himself over the past 3 days? He even removed his left eyeball this morning. It turns out that this middle-aged man used to be the village party secretary of ancient Banyan village. Gu-jun speculated whether the origin of the limb deformity could be ancient Banyan village. Regardless of whether it is the origin or not, ancient Banyan village should have experienced a limb deformity outbreak. The newly arrived bodies should all be villagers. It's too risky to go directly there. Gu-jun decided to use a different approach. He called the office of the ancient Banyan village investment promotion department. Just as he was about to hang up, the call connected. A hoarse cry for help came from the other end. Gu-jun was so scared that he quickly moved away from the phone. The sound seemed to be squeezed out of the throat. The sound is still continuing. I'm not dead. I'm not, I did not. The things in the banyan tree, let me out. I don't want to die, save me. Gu-jun feels that the other party's voice is still very clear. He can't even get a word in edgewise. Things in the banyan tree. The call was abruptly cut off before he could finish speaking. He gritted his teeth and decided that he must quickly enter the circle. Someone suddenly called out to Gu-jun. He turned around and saw that it was the man who had been following him. The man immediately asked Gu-jun to hand over the things. He said that everything would be fine if Gu-jun handed them over. This confused Gu-jun as he didn't know the man and didn't understand what he was talking about. The man claimed to be a receptionist and told Gu-jun not to get excited. He said that the documents were just a pile of garbage to Gu-jun and advised him to just hand them over. He continued by mentioning that Gu-jun's parents were remarkable individuals, but they had taken something they shouldn't have. Gu-jun knew that he was from Lisheng Company. His parents' accident was not as simple as it seemed. The company bears an inescapable responsibility. The man revealed the truth that Gu-jun's parents were not actually killed by the company. Gu Jun clearly did not believe it. Gu Jun took out his phone to take pictures, indicating that he wanted to investigate and expose the truth. The man knew it was useless to say more and indicated that the next time he came to find Gu Jun, he hoped Gu Jun could come to terms with the truth. It seems that Lisheng had already sent someone to monitor Gu Jun since his parents went missing. Gu Jun had no idea what the man was talking about regarding the documents. Why were they only coming to find Gu Jun now? Gu Jun cannot let them know that he has come into contact with mysterious supernatural powers. He needs to continue to pretend to be foolish in front of them and maintain suspicion. When he returned to the dormitory, Gu Jun found out that the medical talent competition had been rescheduled to tomorrow. Gu Jun felt that this must be related to those body donors with limb deformities. This competition is definitely not simple. He wants to know all of this as soon as possible. On the second day, Teacher Gu distributed the competition credentials to them and asked everyone to perform well. The one who came over to say hello was Teacher Yu. The team he leads is widely recognized as the strongest school team in terms of strength. The leader is manhwa, a senior student who has won the first prize scholarship for 6 consecutive years. This time, Green Hill Medical University, which is on par with the University of Tokyo, is also participating in the competition. It is indeed not easy for him to stand out among these people. All students line up for security checks. Mobile phones and other communication devices are not allowed to be brought into the venue. Finally, the organizing committee prepared vomit bags for the students, 3 per person. All students, please take your seats. The opening ceremony is starting. Professor Chen Qingya, the chairperson of the judging panel for this competition, will speak first. He announced that the regular events will be postponed, and this morning's competition will feature a special event. The person who stands out here will have the highest starting point. After speaking, he nodded to the security personnel behind him. He continued to say to these medical students, hoping to select 2 or 3 people from among them today. The gate behind Chen Qingya slowly opened. Staff pulled out a large iron cage from the aisle, creating a silence throughout the whole hall, with only the sound of the wheels of the cage dragging. The students' faces are filled with shock. Such a disgusting scene is truly rare to see. The huge iron cage contains a twisted and distorted fusion mass. They were all human beings at one point, right? The body's limbs are all twisted and distorted. Only the head remains human-shaped. Those who can't bear it anymore have started to vomit. Vomiting sounds were heard one after another throughout the entire hall. They only understood why Professor Chen Qingya had prepared vomit bags for them. Professor Chen instructed the onlookers to have the members of the review panel responsible for each school carefully record each student's reaction. Do not miss any of them. The statistical results should be submitted to him. Later, he saw that most students had vomited. He announced that it was time to get down to business. He asked everyone to talk about their views on this matter. Additionally, he reminded us that it is dead. But it can also be alive. At the end of the speech, the whole audience fell silent. Just as Chen Qingya thought that no one had any thoughts, someone stood up. He is Sun Yuheng, the star player of Green Hill University. He believes that the mutated deaths were caused by the infection of some kind of virus. But how they twisted together and could still be alive, he just couldn't understand. Then Chen Qingya asked, "Do the students from the University of Tokyo have any thoughts?" Ma Jiehua from the school team expressed apologies. "My thoughts are similar to the one from Green Hill University just now." Chen Qingya feels that the answers from these 2 students are not to his satisfaction. He is thinking about asking students from other schools. Suddenly, Gu Jun loudly introduces himself. He expressed that he has some ideas. He pointed to this pile of things and said it felt like a banyan tree. This made Chen Qingya's face change suddenly, and he hurriedly asked Gu Jun why he thought so. Gu Jun requested to approach the cage to take a closer look. he found that these human bodies were not randomly contorted. Although these things look messy, their limbs are all extending outward, like branches. Their bodies are tree trunks, veins, and nerves are air roots. However, their heads are just a fusion of a species proof. Gu Jun speculated that the way it grows is through continuous fusion. Not just humans, it can also fuse with any other creature. Dissection of bodies provided for student competition. The white paint on those body storage containers is quite special, if you observe carefully. This white paint is actually a mixture mainly made of white lime water. The whitewashing of trees with lime is to kill parasitic bacteria, fungi, and insects. And this substance also uses lime to prevent them from merging with other microorganisms to continue growing. It cannot be considered absolutely sterile, but it can be regarded as a form of protection. Chen Xingye further asked Gu Jun how he understands the phrase, "It is dead but can also be alive." Gu Jun said, "We need to go into the cage to have a look." Chen Xingye looked at him with surprise. He then asked the staff to bring gloves and masks. Once Gu Jun entered the cage, he found that the security had locked the door. Gu Jun observed carefully. After death, the cornea becomes opaque due to the loss of moisture. Just judging from the eyes, he is indeed dead, but what about them? Just as Gu Jun was about to reach out and touch it, his eyes suddenly widened. It screamed for help at its mouth. The originally silent and gigantic human body tree suddenly let out a hoarse cry for help, causing Gu Jun to repeatedly step back and lean against the cage in fear. The strange way of pronunciation is the same as the one he used when he called ancient Banyan village yesterday. In just a blink of an eye, all the heads on the human tree opened their eyes. The originally deceased heads emitted painful groans. The students in the building had never seen such a horrifying scene before, and immediately began to emit chaotic screams. Yes, Gu Jun recalled their pupils suddenly dilating. Then they let out a howl. So Gu Jun made a gesture with his hand. The head quickly became quiet. Gu Jun continued to raise his hand to close the other eyes. He said he couldn't save them, and let them rest in peace. The screams from death gradually quieted down. Let Gu Jun come out, Chen Xingye. Please continue to answer that question. Why is it dead, yet can be alive? Gu Jun calmly said that as a human, it is dead, it is a lifeless corpse. Because of this bizarre fusion, the already dead ones have become a new species that continues to live on. The roar just now was their proof of once being human. Gu Jun felt that this should not be within everyone's understanding of resurrection. Chen Xingye did not expect Gu Jun's thoughts to be so close to the reality. He applauded with appreciation. Gu Jun also returned to his seat amidst the applause of the audience. Chen Xingye explained that the creature in this cage, according to current medical knowledge and research, has indeed died. The students did not encounter any ghosts. That is a manifestation of the state of death of this creature, just like the spinal frog reflex experiment that everyone has done. Before discussing these creatures, Chen Xingye needs to talk about those deformed corpses that the students dissected. Those people were infected with aberrant banyan disease, because the pathogen is likely related to the banyan tree. The remark caused a commotion throughout the audience. Aberrant banyan disease has 3 stages of onset. The first stage is the incubation period, which lasts about 15 days. The second stage is the limb lesion period, where abnormal cells appear on the limbs, leading to deformities. Within a few days, they can turn into a body for dissection by everyone. At this stage, if the diseased limb is amputated, the patient can be saved. Chen Xingye said that the bodies for students to dissect are all in the second stage, but they didn't receive proper treatment. There is currently no relevant data on postoperative recurrence and survival period for patients. Further clinical observation is needed. Gu Jun knows that these patients are definitely being isolated and monitored. But why are there so many corpses in the second stage? Chen Xingye will not publicly explain here. Chen Xingye continued. When it develops to the third stage, necroshift phase, mutated cells will rapidly spread throughout the body. Other than the head, structural deformities will appear in other areas, and the skin will ulcerate. The patient will experience persistent severe pain, and accompanied by disturbance of consciousness and mania. As the condition worsens, the patient may experience muscle spasms throughout the body, with occasional opisthotonos. In the final stage of the disease, necroshift phase, there will be loss of self-consciousness. If there are other patients with aberrant Banyan disease necroshift phase in the vicinity, two people will crazily entwine with each other. Once the ulcerated skin adheres, they cannot be separated, and hyperplastic skin will form at the adhesion site. Multiple people will adhere together, ultimately deforming into a shape resembling a banyan tree. Chinchingya, they believe that by doing so, they are no longer human. Instead, they are a new species that cannot be treated. Through their research, they found that this organism has at least two states, alive and dead. A live aberrant banyan tree can continue to merge with other organisms, and its dark liquid becomes infectious. Once in contact with the active dark liquid, it will infect and rapidly progress to the necroshift phase. The surveillance video playing in the venue at this time shows a huge cage containing an aberrant banyan tree, estimated to have over 30 corpses. When two personnel wearing protective suits and gas masks approach, the heads inside start to cry out. One person puts in a mouse, while the other is responsible for recording. As soon as the mouse was placed inside, the hand of the aberrant banyan tree reached out. The mouse caught by these hands screamed in panic. Before long, the mouse penetrated by the black liquid began to contort its limbs, and eventually became a part of the aberrant banyan tree. The medical students saw how the aberrant banyan tree was entangled. It was truly terrifying. According to Chinchingya, their research, this type of organism attracts other creatures by sound to merge with them. Chinchingya's suggestion is if anyone encounters it again, they must not be scared and should immediately move away from its vicinity. This is the state in which this organism lives and can merge with other organisms to grow. Just now, the classmate Gu Jun had a close encounter with the deceased state of this organism. After placing the organism in a vacuum laboratory and removing the air, half an hour later, all of its heart stopped beating, all bodily fluids stopped circulating, and it exhibited the appearance of a corpse, similar to that of a regular organism after death. Formalin is needed for preservation. The black liquid after death is not infectious. But when a living creature approaches it, it will exhibit a non-conditioned reflex of opening its eyes and appealing for help. As for why their eyes are closed, the reflex will end once their eyes are closed. It is currently still under research. Gu Jun asked the companions around him. Could it be that the deactivated black liquid has made the skin become a sensory organ? Wang Ruoxiang agrees. When Gu Jun approached, his breath stimulated the black liquid on the surface of the skin, entering the still active nerves, causing this reflex to appear. Chinchingya finally said that this is a virus, but the details of the pathogen cannot be discussed here. It has been temporarily discovered that there are only two transmission pathways. One is contact with the banyan tree, the source of the disease. The other is direct skin contact with the active black liquid. Under the popular science of Professor Chinchingya, medical students have all learned about the symptoms and transmission route of this strange disease. Chinchingya took out the confidentiality agreement signed by everyone before the competition. The professor instructed everyone not to spread what they heard and saw today. Otherwise, it will surely cause unnecessary panic in society. There are a total of 32 candidates on the shortlist for dissection, with 9 from the University of Tokyo, including Gu Jun, Kai Zixuan, and Wang Ruoxiang. Gu Jun looked at the task list. The difficult task is dissecting alien parts of non-human races. Perhaps there is a chance to do this task today. The reward for the task is a diary of clinical work. Even if it's only 3 pages, this can help Gu Jun take a big step forward in deciphering the alien text. The door opened. Qin Xingye came in and announced the start of the dissection competition. Inside the refrigerated box on the dissecting table was the subject for dissection. There were no standard procedures for assessment. Students could freely demonstrate their skills. The students pressed the button next to the dissecting table, and the empty mechanical sound echoed. The scene that followed made all the medical students in the audience feel extremely terrified. What the hell is this ghostly thing? Inside, only the chest cavity of some kind of creature can be seen. Such a high concentration of formalin can't even cover the stench of this thing's corpse. Gu Jun observed a distinct rhomboid bone structure on the chest. This is identical to the diagram he saw in the system. Kai Zishuan speculates whether it might be another disease that caused the deformed corpse. Gu Jun, however, told them it might be a certain kind of mutant. Said it was skin, but it felt more like layers of thick, overgrown keratin. Several people began to feel troubled. They all didn't know how to make the cut, because everyone didn't understand its physiological structure. So they didn't need to use each step of dissecting the human chest cavity. If the labeling on the diagram is relatively complete, then this organism should be connected to the surface skin directly by plate bones. But it is also possible that the diagram is just one step in the dissection process, and the illustrator has already removed the muscle tissue. Qin Xingye further added that the dissection time is only 2 hours. This causes medical students to complain incessantly, because a normal human thoracic dissection usually takes 3 hours. I don't care. Some people have to start with a normal human thoracic dissection first, and then figure it out.